So yes, we can start. Thank you everyone for joining today's event. Today we have with us Panagopoulos. Panagiotis has previous experience as a SOC analyst, and now the past couple of months he's working at Inviso as a cybersecurity consultant at the Department of CSIRT and SOC. And today we have him with us, and he's going to talk about Phish and tips and the ways and procedures that are used to analyze such emails and extract possible IOCs. And after that short introduction, Panagiotis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, you heard it before. My name is Panagiotis. I am currently working as a SOC analyst at Enviso, and I really like phishing mails. We will split our today's journey into parts. The first part would be the sender and the mail headers, and the second part would be the mail body and the attachments. So let's begin. Mail sender and mail headers, exploring the origin of our phish. We begin with the from section of the header, and especially the domain. So the first thing that we need to do is to check if it looks similar to a legitimate domain, or if it contains any special characters. Let's see some examples. Here, we see a domain trying to impersonate PayPal. Here we see RNN put together, trying to make it look as if it says Microsoft over here. Here we see Microsoft, not quite Microsoft. And here we see Microsoft as a subdomain to a totally irrelevant domain to Microsoft. Well, the easiest solution for such kind of problems is just to do a whois lookup. Being certain, no matter how certain you are, a whois lookup is going to give you the right answer. Let's continue. So, don't trust your own eyes. Unicode characters can be part of the domain. For example, Greek O's, Cyrillic A. Here in the screenshot, we see the domain apple.com registered on April 14th, 2017. This domain is not a legitimate apple.com, and the A over here is a Cyrillic A, and I bet that you didn't notice. A better example, here I have written google.gr, but the two O's are actually the Greek small letter O. So, how do we deal with that kind of anomaly? Well, we can use a Unicode inspector, as you saw in the previous screenshot, or you can just do a simple whois lookup. So let's continue with the reply to field. If the sender is spoofed, how is he going to get your reply? So the reply to field is a field in the mail headers that can be changed, and it is not required to have the same address as the from header over here. Sometimes, though, the attacker can be lazy, and instead of messing with a reply to header, they could just drop a mail for the user to reply plain in the mail body. Here in the screenshot, we see that our attacker did both, if you notice closely. So why would someone do such a thing? I mean, if they are the legitimate sender, why would they need us to reply on a different email address? Let's continue with the three pillars of email authentication: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Well, SPF helps us verify that the sender sending the email an email with a particular domain address is authorized to do so. In other words, after the recipient server gets the email, then it contacts the domain designated in the return path header, and then it verifies that the IP address that was sent, the email was sent from, is the one designated by the domain that was sent from. I hope that that was clear enough. Then we have DKIM. DKIM verifies that the email has not been altered in transit and was written by who claims to be the actual sender. And then we finish with DMARC, which is based upon the results of SPF and or DKIM. Let's speak a little bit about the limitations that SPF has. Well, for starters, SPF does not apply on the from address. As I mentioned before, the check of the validity of the sender IP address is done using the return path. So I can send an email and then just change the from header, and the recipient will see whatever email address I want them to see. And if in the return path, I have an actual domain that has an SPF server behind it, the SPF will pass. Also, SPF records do have a DNS lookup limit. So, what does that mean? SPF records contain a list of IP addresses authorized by the domain owner to send emails. However, this can be considered a crucial drawback because the receiving server needs to check the record to see if the sender is authorized, and in order to reduce the load on that server, SPF records have a specific limit of DNS lookups. This means that if your organization uses multiple third-party vendors who send email through your domain, the SPF record can end up overwhelming that limit, therefore resulting in multiple false positive fails of that authentication. As a result, we understand that SPF is the easiest of the three to spoof and not the most trustworthy. So, what does DMARC do to fill the gap that SPF leaves? So, DMARC authenticates if either SPF, DKIM, or both pass, yet it is possible that SPF and DKIM can pass, but the DMARC check might still fail. This has happened due to a process that's called DMARC alignment. As you can see in the picture here, what DMARC does is check the return path for the SPF check the domain that's on the DKIM signature, and then cross-check those two with the domain that's in the from header, the one that the recipient actually sees. So, if those three don't match, DMARC fails. To give a better example, let's say that I am trying to spoof the domain bank.com. So here in the green field, you are going to see bank.com. So I set up a domain, criminal.net, let's say, and I set there both SPF and DKIM into place. So when I send an email from that domain using the from header bank.com, both both SPF and DKIM are going to pass because they're going to be validated by my server who sits there at criminal.com. But since the address on the from header is different, is bank.com, the mark fails. Now, in case you need to do some further validation and double check stuff, you can use tools such as mxtoolbox.com so that you can verify the mail server's address and from that get to the IP address of the server, or do a reverse IP search and enter the IP address that sent you the email in hope to see the mail server that you are actually expecting to see. Here I have an example screenshot with sch.gr. Now, let's get a bit more hands-on. Mail bodies and attachment. Let's have a journey through to the heart of the Phish. We begin with our first example, an encrypted zip attachment. Now, give me a moment to change the window to my virtual machine. In case that you're not seeing something very well, please inform me so. So let's go to the designated folder that I have for dropping stuff from outside of the VM. So here is our EML file. The EML file actually contains both the headers and the body along with the attachment encoded in MIME format. So I'm not going to be bothered with the headers for now because we explained the whole approach more theoretically. I would really like to focus on the mail code. Now, the EML file with a program called allows me to see that there is some HTML content. Let me zoom in. In the zip attachment. Since I don't see something particularly interesting, I hope now that you can hear me better. Since I don't see anything particularly interesting in the mail body per se, I mean, it just says literally, see the attached file. I'm going to actually go and see the attached file. I'm going to use the utility to unpack for the malicious view. And here, as you can see, we get an HTML file. And we also do get a zip. As you can see, the zip is encrypted. So what can we do now? I mean, we don't have the password. We might be able to crack it though, but there are still solutions that there are still measures that we can take without getting to crack the password. Well, we can begin with checking for the file hash of the zip file. and simply throwing it into VirusTotal. Since this is an encrypted file, it wouldn't be an issue if we actually drop the whole file there. But let's say that this file happens to be too large in order to upload it on VirusTotal. The interesting thing is that the zip itself, the encrypted zip, seems to be clean, and it was found like a month ago. Still, we can create an IOC looking for the unpacking of a file with the following name, that XLS file. And we can try to catch more of that activity around our infrastructure. Now we'll continue with trying to actually unpack the zip file. I'm going to use John the Ripper to crack the zip hash. I'm going to export the hashes in the hashes file. And then I'm going to use the raw keyword list, which currently don't have on my VM. Here it is. In order to crack the password. Okay. We were lucky, and we see here that the password is 2364. That means that we can actually unpack the file just writing 2364. Now, we don't know if this XLS is some sort of confidential material that's part of the customers that has sensitive customer data. So we can't just throw it in VirusTotal. What we can do though is take this hash and check if it was counted previously in the past. So also here we do have another IOC, which is the actual file, the unzipped file hash. So we can look for file creations regarding that hash in case we want to investigate for a similar activity. Okay. It seems that we don't need to move any further. File is most probably clearly a Trojan. Possibly mutant related. So right now we do have two IOCs. One is the hash of the unpacked file, and the second one is the hash of the zip file. The hash of the zip file is not that reliable because by the changing of the password, there's a possibility the hash of the zip is also going to be changing. So as an IOC, we can focus on the hash of the XLS and search for file creation. That settles the case for the encrypted zip attachment. We're going to be moving forward to our second case, an HCM attachment. And let's have a journey to the land of the stolen credentials. Okay, I noticed that I didn't change the slide, but I did now. Going back on our VM, we're going to clean what's left of our files, close everything, and then start over. So this time, we're going to throw in the EML with the HTML attachment. And as we did before, I'm going to use WebMed to check for the contents of the EML file. I do see an EML attachment, but it just says loading here. Nothing suspicious for the moment. And here I see that the sender is outside of our organization and is considered unsafe. The mail content prompts me to move towards the attachment. Okay. It seems that you were left on the commentary for a moment, but yeah. Okay, we were left for the commentary for a moment. So as I said, I transferred the email file. I opened it with WebMed. I saw the mail body. Mail body prompted me to the attachment. From inside WebMed, the attachment doesn't seem to be that much interesting, but we're going to see what will be unveiled. So I'm unpacked. So what do we have here? We do have the HTML part of the email. The HTML part of the email. Uh, we also have the HTML attachment. So before we open the HTML attachment on the browser, actually, I'm going to turn on my VPN, and you will see why for a and I'm going to give a look on the contents of the HTML attachment. Okay, at a quick glance, doesn't seem to contain anything interesting, but that thing over here definitely seems suspicious. Now, there are two approaches here. The one could be to just open the HTML file on the browser and see what's going to happen. And the other is to try and decode that part, that script that's loaded, to check if I can get there without actually communicating with something that I wouldn't want to, even though I'm going to open a new tab. I do see that the those three characters look as if they are separators. We're going to be replacing them. Not too much, but we're going to be replacing them, as I said, with a plain, simple space. Okay, maybe I should have added two spaces. Okay, one was sufficient. Uh, let's see. Yep, great. So this is what we have now. Well, out of experience, I say that this looks like a decimal representation of ASCII characters. I'm going to try to decode that. So let's just open the browser, search decimal ASCII. Oh, what's this? Now we do have an issue with that character over here, but we already have a domain, which means that we already also have an IOC and something to investigate. I can simply throw the domain on virus total. Okay, it's marked as malicious, even though it's an old domain. It was created like 20 years ago. I'm going to keep that for now. Let's see if we can make this work. Okay, that seems more like it. Okay, so we have character.com plus JS. So let's try and load our HCM file and see what happens. Okay, it seems as if we came across a phishing mail. Right now I'm right clicking and trying to open the clicking F12 uh, trick. So reload the HTML file to observe the network connection that it makes. Okay, as you can see, we do have a connection towards c4.js. Let's take a look at the response. Okay, that definitely looks like base64, and we can actually try to decode all that. Okay, that's a lot. That's definitely a lot. So it's a function call that calls these all these base64. That's most probably the whole content of the phishing page. Let's see. As you can see, my code here setup is pretty vanilla. So now that I added my extension, let's try. Actually, let's try copying that, throw it on another tab. Maybe that's a bit more clean. Actually, this part of the investigation right now, it's definitely overkill. But proceed for- we proceed for the okay. As you can see, this does seem to be the phishing site, and we actually get another URL from here. So, without providing any credentials, oh, there's a comment also. So without providing any credentials, we already have two URLs, two domains to use as IOCs. So let's open our browser over here and just search the domain on virus.com. Okay, that one is clean. So findings, the cracker.com. Okay, let's proceed trying to here. As you can see, this email does not belong to someone. I made sure to change it. So let's try this. Try writing something random. Okay, maybe something not so random. Let's try 1345. It's far away. Okay, this is the domain that we actually observed. We do have an IP also now. We did get a response for invalid credentials. As you can see, I did provide a password. Let me zoom in a little bit. I did provide a password. So what I'm going to do now is provide the same password a couple of times so that I can show you that this phishing domain might probably ban my IP address. Okay, let's try once again. Be persistent. And that was redirected. Nice. Okay. Let's try again opening our HTML file. Actually, I expected that I would be banned, but that did not happen. That was why I opened the VPN. Well, we got lucky this time. But as you can see, we managed to extract a couple of IFCs without providing either the user email, not a password, of course. You can actually use to see in page of the phishing the user actually got to. And since this domain over here is loaded by the one that's contained encoded inside the HTML file, by using this domain, the keraker.com, as an IOC, you can make sure that even if the attacker changes, changes the payload, you can still get the phishing. Here I do have a list of the tools and the POC about the Unicode domain phishing.
Okay, thank you for that. Since we don't have any other questions, I think we can close out the event. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. Thank you for stopping by and attending to that event that Panagiotis prepared for us. Panagiotis, thank you once again for your time and the awesome presentation that you had prepared for us. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out either to Panagiotis or to whoever is that has the Invisor logo. Everyone can help you, and everyone is pretty open to provide help. And if there's nothing else, I think that's it for today. Everyone have a nice evening, and I hope we'll see you on a later event.